Welcome back to Twisted and Mysterious. This is part 2 of the podcast. Enjoy.
And again, Cooper's trying to figure out what to do with this sack of money that's going to be impossible to skydive with. Mm-hmm. So he grabs the front sports chute, pulls the ripcord to open it up, gets his pocket knife, and starts, cutting it up to make a holder for the money that he then uses the cords from the parachute to, tie to himself.
Yeah.
And according to sources, this was the best parachute of the bunch. It could be steered, it had little things to, be able to steer it. And so some people believe that Cooper might have been familiar with parachuting, but not an expert, that he chose the best parachute of the bunch to chop up. So he then relays his next set of instructions to the pilots through Tena. He wants them to fly to Mexico City with the cabin lights out and no one except Tena behind the first class curtain. He wants the landing gear down. He wants the flaps set to 15 degrees and to fly at 10,000 feet, no higher. He wants the aft door open and the stairs down. And so they call Boeing to find out if they can even fly like that. And so Boeing tells them, well, you can't take off with the aft stairs down, but the plane can fly with them down after takeoff because the same plane had been used in Vietnam to drop large boxes out of the plane, and so they would have to drop the stairs down and then slide the boxes down that way, and so that it could fly like that.
Yeah.
The other problem was that because the plane is going to be flying so low and slow, it's going to use a lot of fuel. So they can't make it all the way to Mexico City, and they figure the farthest that they can fly without refueling is Reno, Nevada. To which Cooper replies, whatever, I don't even care. I'm going to jump out of the plane. I don't care where you go. So, meanwhile, Tena is trying to reason with Cooper to try to let her go up to the cockpit. And he tells her that she can't because he doesn't know how to lower the stairs. And that she's going to have to help him. And she's freaking out because she's like, as soon as you open the door, I'm going to get sucked out of the airplane. And so she's like, can I use some of this parachute cord that you chopped up to tie myself to something, because she's afraid she's going to suck it out of the plane. And he literally just tells her, never mind. And he tells her that he'll just do it himself after she shows him how to open the door and then sends her to the cockpit. But before she leaves, she asks him what he's going to do with the bomb. And he tells her that he's either going to take it with him or disarm it. And then she went to the cockpit. The FBI had a couple of fighter jets dispatched to tail the plane, but it was traveling so slow that the jets just whooshed past them. Yeah. They also had a helicopter following, but it was too slow to catch up to the plane. And all of these different jets and helicopters and stuff ran on different frequencies, so they couldn't even contact the pilots of the plane. And so they were just basically up there by themselves. The plane had departed SeaTac at 7:40 p.m. A short time after they were in the air, Cooper called up to the pilots because he was having trouble with the stairs. And I guess they were kind of they needed gravity to really work. You had, something needed to be pushing down on them to make them come down.
Right.
And I know that they made some kind of adjustment in the flying or something where he was able to get them down enough, because at 8 o'clock they noticed that a light on their instrument panel lit up that indicated that the door to the aft stairs had been opened. The pilots called back on the intercom and said they figured it was probably really loud back there now that the door was open.
Yeah.
And they said, can you hear me? Is there anything we can do for you? And Cooper picked up the phone and just replied with, no. And that was the last they heard from him. At 8:13, they felt a bump in the plane, the tail had kind of pitched a little bit. And this is presumably the moment when he jumped from the plane. However, without going back there, they couldn't be sure, and they didn't want to just go back there because the door's wide open.
Right.
And so they did try to call him on the intercom several more times and never got an answer. At 11:02 p.m., they landed in Reno with the aft stairs still deployed. Cooper was gone, and a bomb squad boarded to check for the bomb, and they didn't find it. And that was it. He was gone.
Yeah.
No one knew his real identity, and after an extensive search in the area, they estimated he jumped. No trace of him was found. That is until 1980. In 1980, the Ingram family was enjoying an outing on the Tena Bar on the Columbia River in Vancouver, Washington. Their 8-year-old son, Robert, was... Not Robert, Brian. I don't know why I wrote Robert. His name is Brian. Who's Robert?
Those are 2 different names.
I don't even know who Robert is. Brian was smoothing out some sand for his father to build a campfire on. And he felt something under the sand, so he started digging, and he found 3 stacks of money that was still bound together, and it was in, like, pretty rough condition.
Yeah.
And he gave it to his parents, who eventually turned it over to the FBI, and it turned out to be $5,800, and the serial numbers matched the ransom number given to Cooper. The money was, like I said, badly deteriorated. The corners were rounded, like they had been in moving water for a long time.
Yeah.
The FBI sent people out to search for more money, but nothing was ever found. And they eventually kept a few bills for evidence and then split the remaining money between Brian and Northwest Airlines Insurance Company. Brian received $2,760, which I was like, good on them to give it to the kid.
Right.
Since he's the one who found it. In 2008, he sold 15 of his bills at auction for $37,000. So it was a great investment.
Yeah. Most people would have just spent it.
Yeah, well, I don't think he could have spent it because, like, it was real bad. Let me see. I'll show you a picture. Let's see. D.B. Cooper found money, maybe. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, like, it wasn't in a bag or anything, and so some people wonder, like, did it fall out when, like, he was parachuting, or, you know, did he, like, try to hide some, or, you know, something, but, no other bills, like, I don't know if I said this already, have ever been recovered that match the serial numbers.
Yeah.
But you know what I kept wondering while I was reading all of this and listening to the podcast and stuff was, I mean, I don't even know how they would do it now, but they took pictures of, like, all of these, like, hundreds of $20 bills for the serial numbers. Who's sitting around checking the serial numbers of every $20 bill that gets spent there? You know, because they gave the picture or the list of serial numbers to, like, casinos and places where they thought that he might spend the money. But even still, like, who's going through and looking at every serial number of every $20 bill? That seems insane. And even now, I mean, I guess they could scan them, but I still don't know that that's a thing. I mean, usually they put them in, like, the money counters and go about their business. So, I don't know. That just seems like a lot of work. So, before we talk about the suspects, you might be wondering how we ended up with the name D.B. Cooper, when he literally identified himself as Dan Cooper at the airport and never identified himself as anything else during the flight, and no one actually knew his real identity. So I'll tell you.
Okay.
Apparently, it was a mistake by a reporter. So when word started getting out that the plane was hijacked, a reporter named James Long from the Oregon Journal misheard the name over the wire, like it was garbled, and reported him as D.B. Cooper. And then other stories spawned from his story, and that name just spread. And the FBI actually didn't correct any of them because they thought it might help narrow in on credible sources if the name came in as Dan Cooper instead of D.B. Cooper, since that wasn't even a real thing.
Yeah.
But from then on, for the rest of time, it's always been known as the D.B. Cooper story.
That's what it's famously known as.
Yep. So, more than 1,000 suspects were considered by the FBI over the years, but there were only a handful that seemed viable. Also, there were many suspects considered and many tips called in. And Flo and Tina had sat with a sketch artist to create a picture of the man that they had spent all of these hours with.
Right.
And so they have a picture both with and without sunglasses. And there are some suspects that seem to fit everything but didn't even remotely match the descriptions. Mm-hmm. So, but also eyewitness memory is also really faulty. So, so we'll talk about a couple of the suspects that have gained notoriety. So probably the main suspect that the FBI had was a man named Richard McCoy. Richard actually looks pretty close to the picture. Mm-hmm. And 4 months after Cooper jumped from the plane, Richard McCoy hijacked a plane. Okay. I think it was out of Denver. It was the exact same kind of plane. He asked for $500,000 in cash, and he parachuted out of the plane while it was over Utah. The difference is that McCoy was caught. He was sent to prison and then escaped by making a fake gun out of dental plaster and then hijacked a truck to, leave the prison yard and, escape.
Okay.
When the police found him, he decided to go out in a blaze of glory, and he had a shootout with the police where he was killed. His family did give him an alibi for the Cooper hijacking, saying that he had been at home in Utah. So, who knows? Families are known to lie for their loved ones, right, too, so who knows? Another suspect is a man named L.D. Cooper. So, I don't know if he would have used his real name, but maybe. He lived in the Pacific Northwest, and Thanksgiving 1971, his family was together for the holiday at his mother's house in Sisters, Oregon. A woman named Marla Cooper, who was LD's niece, is the person who actually brought him up as a suspect in 2011. She remembers being at her grandmother's house, and that LD was, her favorite uncle, and she was 8 at the time, and so she would just follow him around. And that he and another uncle, she, kept overhearing them planning something. Uh-huh. And she asked them what they were planning, and they said they were going hunting. And she was like, oh, cool, are you going to go hunt a turkey? Because it's Thanksgiving.
Right.
And they kind of laughed and agreed. And the next she remembers seeing her uncles, LD is coming into the house in a bloody shirt, and he seems kind of banged up. And she overhears him say something like, we did it, we hijacked the plane, now our many troubles are over. Mm-hmm. And her father realized she heard and swore her to secrecy, and then the uncle went into hiding, and she never saw him again.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And then to further tie him to this, one of his brothers was an engineer at Boeing, but he also didn't have any skydiving experience that anyone knew of. Mm-hmm. One other thing that I didn't mention earlier was that there was this very niche Belgian comic book series that was about a pilot for the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the series was called The Adventures of Dan Cooper.
Yeah.
And some of the storylines kind of match up with the Cooper hijacking, like parachuting out of a plane, which, I mean, maybe a stretch because it was about a pilot, but also having ransom delivered in a knapsack. Mm-hmm. And L.D. Cooper was a fan of this comic that, as far as I could find on the internet, was never even printed in English.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of weird, like a weird kind of tie-in there. Mm-hmm. Another suspect was a woman named Barbara Dayton. She was a pilot who had been born Robert Dayton, and she had been the first woman in Washington to undergo gender reassignment surgery.
Okay.
She claimed that she had dressed as a man and pulled off the hijacking to get back at the FFA. those future farmers. To get back at the FAA for making it nearly impossible for a woman to become a commercial pilot. She later recanted her story after she found out that she could still be charged with a crime.
So, never mind.
Wasn't me. I'm a lady.
I am clearly a lady.
The fourth main suspect is a man named Kenny Christensen. And Kenny actually worked for Northwest Airlines and did parachute jumps in World War II. So on his deathbed, he calls his brother Lyle over and he says, "There's something you should know, but I can't tell you."
All right.
And Lyle told him, "I don't care what it is. You don't have to tell me about it." Mm-hmm. No? Spill the tea.
Right.
So later, I guess, Lyle sees an episode of Unsolved Mysteries featuring D.B. Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees the sketch and thinks that it looks like his brother. And then he's like, maybe that's what he was going to tell me.
Right.
And then he hires a private investigator to locate the filmmaker Nora Ephron to ask her to make a movie about his brother being D.B. Cooper.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. The last suspect that we're going to discuss is an insurance salesman named Dwayne Weber. It's W-E-B-E-R. Anyway, so when he was dying in 1995, he told his wife, Jo, I am Dan Cooper. Which I was like, well, he said Dan.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Dan Cooper. And she was just like, who's Dan Cooper?
Who's that?
And apparently he got really upset that she didn't know who Dan Cooper was and was just like, never mind, just let it die with me. And then he died 3 days later. After he died, she started finding weird things like IDs in his car belonging to John C. Collins, but had her husband's picture on them. And she found out that he had actually been to prison under both his real name and his alias. And after a friend explained to her about the Cooper hijacking, she went to the library to learn more and allegedly found his handwriting in the margins of a book about D.B. Cooper.
Okay.
She also started remembering things that she had no reason to connect to the hijacking before. Dwayne had told her that he had a bad knee injury from jumping out of a plane. They had gone on a trip to Washington together at one point, and he had stopped the car one time and told her that spot is where D.B. Cooper came out of the woods. And I guess she, didn't think, remembered that, because she didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
She also said that while they were on the trip, he came inside, and she could tell that he had been digging because his hands and his pants were dirty. But I guess he never... I don't know if she asked him about it or she just decided not to ask him about it. And later they were driving and he had a paper bag and she asked him about it and he said it was just trash he was going to throw out, which he apparently threw out into the water. And she gets real upset and she's like, how dare you litter in the waterways?
Right.
She has this young dude friend who, tries to help her piece together her memories to kind of fit in with this D.B. Cooper story. And he mapped out the waterways. And so, if her memory was correct about where he threw the bag into the water, it would have ended up in the Tena Bar area.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he would have thrown the money into the water in a paper bag. This was all in a documentary that I watched, and I was, thinking about it earlier, and I was like, did they explain why he would have done that? But I don't remember.
Yeah. That seems like a lot of trouble to go through to get the money to then throw it out the window in a paper bag.
Was he planning on going back to get it? Thinking, it's going to go downstream? I don't know. Because the FBI was curious about where it was because it was upstream from where they thought Cooper would have landed. And so they were like, how would it have got upstream? That doesn't make any sense. So if this story is true, then that would give a reason why it ended up in the place where it was. But anyway, he was eventually ruled out by DNA found on the cigarettes and the necktie that was left behind on the plane. Most of the information about the suspects, like I said, I got from a documentary called The Mystery of D.B. Cooper on HBO. And it was so funny while I was watching it because I'd be like, that guy definitely did it. And then they'd move on to another guy and I'd be like, no, that guy definitely did it.
This guy did it.
And then they'd go back and talk about one of the other guys and I was like, no, that guy definitely did it.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's just crazy because they all kind of fit in these weird ways. But I don't know. The last theory, I think, is the one that's most widely accepted in law enforcement, and it's that Dan Cooper died during the jump. And so, if we recall from the top of the episode, Cooper was wearing a business suit, loafers, and a raincoat. Now, while he did take off his clip-on tie that he left on the plane, and I guess it was from JCPenney. They discovered that. I don't know.
That's very important
It was
evidence.
important information. Also, that pretty nasty storm had moved in during the commission of this heist. And it's estimated that at 10,000 feet, the temperature was probably in the negatives. There were high winds and heavy rain. The cloud cover made it impossible to see. And it was after dark. So he might have guessed where he was jumping, but it would have been impossible for him to know exactly where he was jumping. And he also jumped over a forest. The military chute that he chose didn't have the ability to be steered. And so, I mean, you just kind of went where it took you. And the backup chute was the dummy chute that didn't open. He left the other good back chute on the plane.
Yeah.
And so if his first chute had failed, he didn't have a backup. And so, where am I at? And his parachute hasn't ever been found. There was a parachute strap that was found by a hunter at some point, but there's no way to know if that actually belongs to D.B. Cooper or not. So even if he did somehow make it to the ground safely, he was wearing a business suit and loafers.
Yeah.
Which was not made for cold, rainy forests.
No, it's not quite.
And hiking out of cold, rainy forests.
Not quite survival gear.
So to this day, the Cooper hijacking, also known as Norjack, remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in the history of commercial aviation in the United States.
All right.
And God, there's so much information about this case out there, and I just kind of scratched the surface here. Like I said, I listened to a 3-part episode on Astonishing Legends. There's also entire podcasts that are just dedicated, like with multiple episodes. I didn't listen to those because I just didn't have the time, but if you want more details of this case, they are out there and easy to find. I also listened to a podcast I'd never heard before called Stuff You Should Know. Have you ever listened to them?
I don't think so.
I love them. I'm going to start listening to them because they're really funny. Let's see. I watched the HBO documentary. I found the original Unsolved Mysteries episode on YouTube, and I watched that. Flo is on that one. She is interviewed for that one. I watched BuzzFeed Unsolved, and I read a book. Oh, I think I already mentioned the book, Skyjack, The Hunt for D.B. Cooper by Jeffrey Gray. And that's where I got most of the information about what took place on the plane. And the HBO documentary was kind of cool because there were interviews with the pilots, and Tina Mucklow was on that one, telling about what it was like to be on the plane and the original FBI agents. So those are all good. There's a bunch of other documentaries. I just didn't have the streaming services to watch all of them. So anyway, there's D.B. Cooper, or Dan Cooper, whatever his real name is.
Or someone whose last name is not Cooper.
Yeah. Now I'm very sleepy.
I'm also very sleepy. I was ready for bed at like 8 o'clock.
And this week's going to be all long days. So I've got night school. Well, I had night school today. I had night school tomorrow. I had night school on Thursday.
Why do you have night school tomorrow?
Because I had to trade for when I was sick last week.
Oh.
And then I've got football.
Yeah. It's a busy life.
It's a very busy life. And I'm sure that you're very excited to learn that Taylor Swift is getting married.
So I've somehow unfortunately heard a dozen times today.
It was funny because Kayla came running into my classroom and she was like, guess who's getting married? And I was like, you?
It's so sudden.
And she, no, Taylor Swift. And I was like, oh, I should have guessed that, but I did not. And then we were laughing because like it had been posted 5 hours before that. And I said, this is what happens when they take away our cell phones at school.
Yes.
We don't get informed of the important information that's going on in the world.
According to the guy on the radio that I heard it from for the multipleth time today, today was also the day that the pumpkin spice lattes came back out.
Oh, so it's a magical day all around.
Apparently.
I got a notification this evening from Little Caesars.
They've got some pumpkin spice pizza.
No. The title of it is A Pizza Love Story. And it says, 2 to 1 topping pizzas for just $4.99 each. Baby, just say yes.
I guess run with it if you can.
I mean, why not? She's given lots of things to run with. She announced her new album the other day.
Yeah.
And then all of the companies went crazy about that. And now this. So.
Yeah.
I guess it affects my life in no way.
No.
Other than Travis Kelce doesn't seem to inspire her to write the best songs. The ones that she wrote about him are like,
Yeah.
they're okay. I mean, I'm glad she likes him and everything, but he's no muse.
I can't imagine.
So anyway, you got anything else?
No, I have a backache. That's about it.
It was funny earlier. I got up and I was like, I feel like I've been moving.
Yeah.
Like I was like sore all over. My shoulders were sore. My back was sore. My legs were sore.
It's like my left shoulder blade. It just hurts.
Kayla said it's probably just because I'm not used to standing up and sitting down.
Yeah.
I'm doing too much up and down right now. All right. Well, remember that you can find us on things at
Social
Twisted
media
and Mysterious.
and stuff.
It's been too long since we've done this.
Yeah, it took a whole week.
God. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's been 2 weeks since we recorded last. So that's plenty of time for my ADHD brain to forget things. So social media at Twisted Mysterious. You can email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com.
Our mother would really like to hear from you.
Oh, would she?
Yeah, she was like, you guys should interview some people who have like first-hand experience with like ghosts and stuff, you know. And I was just like, every week we put out a thing that says, hey, if you have a story, tell us your story.
Yeah. So, okay, well, you can write to Carla at twistedmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com.
She really wants to hear your ghost stories. She's trying to get creeped out, and she has a hard time getting creeped out.
Yeah,
so.
she doesn't scare easily unless you walk up behind her and she can't hear.
She's really upset that Zach Bagans isn't creeping her out enough.
Well, he creeps me out plenty.
He personally, but his ghosts aren't doing it for her.
No, I mean, this woman, just to give you a quick little tangent, she will get on the roller coaster that goes straight down and has nothing to hold on to and puts her hands up in the air and then gets off of said roller coaster and goes, that was it. So
she's looking to be scared.
if you could scare her, that'd be great. I mean, it's not that easy to do. So maybe we should make her watch that one Blair Witch Project we went and saw that one time.
She would say it's dumb.
Ugh. Creeps me out just thinking about it. And I also don't scare easily.
Yeah. It was uncomfortable.
It was so uncomfortable. That... I don't know. We're just going to go on all the tangents after the episode today, I guess.
I guess.
I don't like time loss.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to peel my skin off.
Yeah.
And there's so much, like, time jumps and time loss in that movie. Not the original Blair Witch. Like, I don't want to say new one, because it's not new.
No.
But, like, the most recent one, I guess. It's, like, over a decade old, I would imagine, at this point. But it's just very, very uncomfortable. And it was cold in the theater.
It was really cold in the theater. So on top of the movie making us uncomfortable, we were physically uncomfortable, and we almost left.
Yeah. But I think that's probably one of the only movies that's, like, just truly scared me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe I should watch it again sometime.
Maybe.
I like to get scared every once in a while. And it's funny because I'll seek out, especially, like, it's getting to be spooky season. And so I'll, like, try to find books that will scare me. And I'll, like, search these lists that are, like, books that will scare me or scary books or whatever. And it'll be like, this is the scariest book of all time. And then I read it and it's so stupid and boring. Mm-hmm. And so I end up just reading The Shining over and over because even though I know what's going to happen, I still get a little spooked by it.
Yeah. So please scare our mom.
Please scare our mom.
And send us any stories that you have or any story ideas that you have for us to cover.
And maybe we'll be back next week.
Hopefully. Hopefully nobody will be ill next week.
Hopefully.
And we'll be back with another story and some boring banter.
Yeah. Because everybody likes to hear us yap.
Yes. Anyway, so I think that's all that we've got for you. So, as always, remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
And if you're going to jump out of an airplane, know what you're doing. Goodbye.